Steeler fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers preview as we break down the upcoming game. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1-4, and they're preparing for the Los Angeles Chargers in Week 6 in LA. It's a West Coast swing. We know that typically does not mean a lot of good stuff for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nonetheless, we're here to talk about it no matter what. And joining me, as always, my co-host Brian Anthony Davis. Brian, how you doing?
You know what? I always do well on the West Coast, so I'm hoping that good mojo goes over to the Steelers this time around.
Dave Schofield, how's it going?
It's going 1-4. That's about how good it's going.
I could second that. Absolutely. So what we want to do is, this is typically in the part of the show where we talk about what happened the past week, anything that was, important or noteworthy. We're going to do a new segment starting today. It's going to be called our Around the Horn segment, where each of us is going to pick one topic that we want to talk about. We might chime in on it afterwards, and then we'll get right into the injury report, Dave's Stat Geek, and stuff of that nature. So Brian, we'll start with you. What's your topic of discussion for this week?
Well, this came out with a vengeance this week, and it's the fact that talk of Mike Tomlin being traded to the Washington Redskins is just a noisy distraction that would never even happen at this moment anyhow. Look, if you love the Steelers, you are not rooting for this to happen right now. It's not going to happen in the middle of the season. There's no reason it would. The Redskins would not make that move in the season. But the one good thing that this speculation does is that this takes a lot of the fire Tomlin talk off of the table. If you don't like Mike Tomlin, you no longer want him to be the coach, but you love the Pittsburgh Steelers, you don't want to call for him to be fired right now. You want to call for him to continue going on. If you have dreams of 2 1s and 2 2s, all of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sending those to the Oakland Raiders in 2002, then that's what you do. And you know what? We're talking about it because it's out there, and that's the only reason we're doing it.
Okay, so my question, Brian, about this topic is, what if it's not for the season? I don't think anyone thinks it's going to be done in the middle of the season, but in the options offer a decent bounty from Mike Tomlin, would you pull the trigger? Let's say that they do half of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traded for John Gruden back in 2002. They give up a first and a second. Do you take that deal?
You know what? As much as I really want Mike Tomlin to be a part of this team, I kind of take that deal. I think that would be something that would benefit both parties, especially an opportunity to go to Washington for him for many a reason, which we've been talking about ad nauseum. But look, you talk all the time about losing that pick with Minkah Fitzpatrick. And you talk about losing that, you get a chance to recoup that. And the way the Redskins are playing, that could be a top 3 pick.
Dave, what are your thoughts on the whole subject?
Well, we don't need to talk. Well, we're talking about it now because it's out there. But this is going to be something that will be a big topic of discussion come January and February. But it all comes down to this. I see the Art Rooney, I see Kevin Colbert, I see them sitting down with Mike Tomlin after the season. They're saying, all right, here's the deal. If they come, what are we saying? This is really on you. We don't want you to go, but if you're wanting to go, you might as well tell us. So I think it's going to come completely down to if Coach Tomlin wants to move on or if he doesn't. I don't think they'll trade him against his will. And honestly, I think it's crazy that he would, if he'd, I'm sorry, so you guys got to just start laughing at the live chat while I'm talking. Well, I can't read it, but that's okay. I'll catch up when I'm done talking. Bottom line is, now what was I saying? It was, oh man, you guys are so distracting. This is great. Why would he want to go to Washington? Other than, yeah, he'd be a little bit closer where he grew up. Yeah, he'd be right there where his son's playing college football at the University of Maryland. But other than that, he'd be coaching the Washington Redskins and working for Daniel Snyder, which is like team 32 when it comes to stability and coaching versus team 1 that he's with right now. So that would just kind of be crazy for him to want to do something like that.
It would be crazy. And I would say that the factor, the thing that you mentioned, and that was that he would be closer to his son, might be appealing to Mike Tomlin. being able to just go down to College Park and seeing, his son play football in Division I, which is not, it doesn't happen every day, even for coaches and things of that nature. So, all right, Dave, that's Brian's Around the Horn segment. What's yours?
Okay, my Around the Horn is this, because I had a lot of discussion of this going on with my show on Tuesday, and that is, it seems like everybody's is ready to crown the Steelers' third quarterback as the next big thing. I've heard talk of we finally got ourselves a Tom Brady. I've heard talk of he's a poor man's Baker Mayfield. Who brought that up today? There was some NFL analyst that said that, but I don't know who that was. I saw it somewhere. But my thing is, it's like, come on. I mean, the narrative of, he looked so much better. I had someone wanting to get in an argument with me saying, Hodges, he was throwing the ball down the field and Rudolph wasn't. Well, that's not true. I actually used numbers to back that up. And everything was spot on. Everything. No. Also got to remember the way the Steelers handle someone starting their first game versus coming off the bench their first game. Do we really want to go back to a game plan like we saw in San Francisco, which is what I'm afraid that they will do if Hodges starts? I still love me some Duck. I really do. But to say he's going to be out there and he's the best quarterback we have in the franchise and we don't need a Ben Roethlisberger back and we don't need Mason Rudolph to clear protocol is just crazy talk.
It's funny, Dave. Last night on our Standard is the Standard, Lance was kind of siding with those people that you are saying is crazy talk, that maybe what the Steelers need is Devlin Hodges and his anticipatory throws and things like that. And I stopped him and said, Lance, doesn't this sound familiar? Weren't we saying the same exact thing about Mason Rudolph in week 2 when Ben Roethlisberger got hurt and everyone said, man, he came in and he was slinging that ball down the field and Ben was just checking it down and blah, blah, blah. And then you see when they have a full start, when a defense has a chance to actually prepare for that particular quarterback, it's a different beast. And so we're going to talk about the injuries here not too long. So I don't want to get too much into like the Mason Rudolph situation, but I agree with you. I don't think that Devlin Hodges is a bad quarterback. I don't want people to think that what I'm saying is suggesting that. I think, though, personally, if he's deemed healthy, that Mason Rudolph gives them the best chance to win. That's it. I'm a big Mason Rudolph fan, but I'm not about to sit here right now and say, Mason Rudolph is the next franchise quarterback for the Steelers. The guy's only had 2 starts in his career. Okay, it's certainly a situation. It's 2, right? It's just 2. Yeah. Okay. Did I forget one? He started San Francisco. That was 3. No, that's
3 and 4.
There you go. All right. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on this whole? Everyone's all on Duck Dynasty right now.
Well, actually, he had 3 starts in his career.
Yeah, we had 3 starts, but 2 complete games.
2 complete
as a starter.
Okay.
There you go.
So first of all, how you said it.
First of all, I don't even want a rich man's Baker Mayfield at this point. So I just gotta say that. I love me some Duck too. I love the story. We have been talking about this guy since May, just because we love the story, and that was before the name Duck came out. Before we knew anything about duck calls. What we did know is that he broke Steve McNair's record. What we knew. 24-year record in FCS. What we knew is that he was basically the Heisman Trophy winner of FCS last year. He was their MVP. This guy is a solid player. He reminds me of a gunslinger with nothing to lose, and that's exactly what he is. But I also remember the performance in the second half of that dreadful Thursday night Carolina game. We're like, oh, okay, the real Ducks here. And I understand that. So when you come out, Mason Rudolph looked like a different quarterback and a much better quarterback when he came out against Seattle, because you just have to throw him in. Remember all those years of Landry Jones looking so much better in relief as opposed to when he started a football game. So that's something I remember. So I want to see him for 4 full quarters before I crown him king. But I love the fact that he's there, and I'm glad it's him and not Joshua Dobbs still. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, Jeremy Martin puts $2 in the tip jar. And this is a question for Dave. Dave, I'll let you say what you want to say before you answer the question. But the question is, what stat line do you think would make Duck the starter? So let's say, yeah, I think what he's assuming is, let's say that Duck is the quarterback Sunday night in Los Angeles. What would be a stat line he would have to provide to basically take the job from Mason Rudolph? So Dave, you can go ahead and answer that one.
Okay, well, to tie it up, it was actually Bruce Gradkowski that said that he was a poor man's Baker Mayfield. I had to go look it up and see where that quote came from. So, what kind of stat line for him to take it? It's going to take a great. Let's just say this: it's going to take more of a stat line of a like 350 yards, 4 touchdown line, and it's basically going to take a line that they're not even going to allow him to have. Because this is the problem that I have, where people are like, "Oh, start Duck, he's better." One, I don't believe he's better. Two, Rudolph came out kind of slinging the ball around in the second half of that Seattle game. Looked good. I really wanted him to get a chance to see if he could win it at the end, but the defense couldn't get it done. I still think if the Steelers had Minkah Fitzpatrick in that game, they win that game, but that's a whole different story. But then they eased him in for 2 weeks. They played it cautious for 2 weeks, even getting a win in there. And then he's finally started to come back around. They started to let him throw the ball down the field against the Ravens this past week, and then he gets knocked out. Do you really want 2 more weeks of the offensive game plan of not really pushing the ball down the field and trying to take care of your quarterback while you ease him in again? I just don't want to ease in another quarterback because it's what they're going to do.
I agree. And so we're going to talk about this in a second. So I'll get to my around the horn topic, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And Dave alluded to Minkah Fitzpatrick just a few seconds ago. And the more I think about this football team and where they're headed, if they have any chance of potentially, righting the ship, and everyone's talking about if they can win Sunday night, go into the bye week, come off the bye week playing the Miami Dolphins on Monday night at home, and there's a lot of good that comes with Monday nights in Pittsburgh. We know that from just a few weeks ago, that they could potentially be 3-4 after week 8, and that would be a situation where they could inject themselves back into the discussion. Not suggesting they would be in first place, not suggesting they would be playoff contenders, but they would be back in the discussion. And I kept on thinking about one thing and one thing only. This defense is going to have to win games for the Steelers. In the past, the Steelers have gotten away with Ben Roethlisberger being Ben Roethlisberger, the defense making plays here or there, and everything else just kind of falls into place. They don't have Ben Roethlisberger anymore, and so the offense is not going to get. It's we've seen the red zone struggles. We've seen the points off of turnovers be very, very subpar, in my opinion, especially in the San Francisco game. But that would even equate to the same in the Baltimore game last week. I think for me, you could talk about backup quarterbacks, but it's going to come down to the defense not giving up drives after scores. Dave, you talked about that in your show this week. They might have to score some touchdowns. I hate to say that, but you might have to get a TJ Watt strip sack and someone picks it up and runs it in for a touchdown. It might take those type of plays. I hate saying that because I don't like relying on that. I just feel that this is where this team is trending. The defense is on the uptick. The offense is just plateaued because we don't know who the quarterback is. We don't know what they're going to do with the quarterback, whomever that may be. And I just think that for me, it's going to be the defense that's going to have to lead this team. And the question is, and I'll ask you guys, can the defense get it done? Brian, what do you think?
Well, we're starting to see a defense that's really becoming the strength of this team so far. I feel like they are stabilized under a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick. I also think that, and Dave, you can help me out with this. You have a team that has 6 interceptions already and are going to lead the league in sacks. In fact, probably at the end of the year will break the all-time 3-year record for sacks in NFL history. But last year, didn't they have only 7 interceptions the entire season?
Was it even? I know it was 15 takeaways on the season, so they're already at 12 right now.
Yep.
Right. I can't remember the exact breakdown, but it's something like that. They're close in all regards.
So, you know what? This is a defense that has greatly elevated themselves from last year. We really saw in last week's game against the Baltimore Ravens that they were relying on this defense. And it seemed like, and I even felt confident. I know a lot has been said about the coin toss. Giving it away in overtime is dumb. But here's the thing, and that's not what I'm saying. That's what I'm reading, and that's what I'm hearing. But here's the thing: they believed in that defense, where they weren't believing. They took a gamble on that defense because they are really believing in them right now. I feel like this is just a very mature defense now that it wasn't last year. We're not seeing Terrell Edmonds left on an island anymore. You have a rookie phenom that is running sideline to sideline. And then TJ Watt looks like a game breaker. He looks like that guy that could turn the game on a dime at any time. And I don't feel like we've had that in Pittsburgh for a long time. So I'm feeling that this defense, Jeff, you're right. They have to win games. Now, I'm going to go a step further. I think this faster defense can win games.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense is what's had them in these games in the first place. I mean, they've been right on the verge of winning the games anyway. So that is what it's going to take. But it's interesting because when Ben Roethlisberger came in as a rookie, what was their recipe for success? Shut down defense, good running game. I feel like you've got the defense getting. I mean, I'm not talking about being 2004 good, but they're getting there. They really are. So they're doing their part. So it's so difficult to rely completely on a defense to win you games. Much like what was that? Was that the 2000 Ravens that did that? That's really difficult. But they're right there, and that's what's going to continue to keep the Steelers in games is his defense, and eventually maybe even win them for them.
Yeah, in the second half of the Baltimore game, you saw the Steelers defense, in my opinion, take it up a notch, and they were dominant. The defensive line owned the line of scrimmage. They were getting after Lamar Jackson. If it weren't for a couple questionable calls, we'll put it that way, mainly on one Ola Adeniyi, we would possibly be looking at a different outcome. But nonetheless, here we are, 1-4, gearing up for the upcoming game. Dave, you have a stat geek. Are you ready to go?
I have so many stat geeks, I don't know what to do here. So since I know Brian's not a team player, and I'm sure he didn't listen to my show on Tuesday, I think I might use something from that. Sorry, I just had to go there. Here's the question. The Steelers have started slow this year. They're 1-4. But it's not just about starting slow for the season. It's also starting slow in games. Do you know how many points the Steelers have scored in the first quarter this season?
I'm going to say 15.
I'm going to say 6.
Well, Brian was correct going into this week, but that touchdown to Juju Smith-Schuster against the Ravens was at the very end of the first quarter. So that brought them up to 13 on the season. But all they had before that was the 2 gift field goals from San Francisco. Other than that, they have not put up points in the first quarter. But it hasn't been as noticeable because the defense is also not giving up a lot of points in the first quarter. They've only given up 20. But not only is it a first quarter issue, it's a first drive issue. How many first downs do the Steelers have on their opening drive total for the season? Opening drive of the game, how many first downs?
I'm going to say 2.
I'm going to go with 5.
And one, Jefferson Davis Hartman, is correct with 2. And do you know, and they were both in the same game. Do you know who they were against?
It wasn't Cincinnati. They went 3 and out in that first drive. They went 3 and out against Baltimore. Was it Seattle?
New England.
It was the New England Patriots.
Really? Okay.
Listen to these first drives. Listen to these first drives. Week 1, 7 plays, 27 yards, punt after 2 first downs. Week 2, 3 plays, -2 yards, punt. Week 3, 3 plays, 5 yards, field goal because they got the ball in field goal range. Week 4, 2 plays, 3 yards, fumble. And week 5, 3 plays, 5 yards, punt. That's what they've done on their opening drives. It has been ridiculously bad. But what's crazy is the defense has been bailing them out.
What's crazy is that offensive possession is a scripted possession. That those are the plays that they practice ad nauseum. Like,
so they do better when it's not scripted.
Exactly,
I mean, look what they did at Baltimore. They did 3 and out, and then the first play of the next drive was the interception.
Yeah. Well,
man, I've seen better scripts in a Carrot Top movie.
So you're going with Carrot Top on that one, huh?
We could have gone a bunch of different ways. And he went Carrot Top.
He went Carrot Top.
He's gone full on Carrot Top.
Yeah.
So, all right, Dave, anything else for your stat geek?
Oh, I mean, I could throw out all kinds of stuff if you wanted to, but I mean, I could give you the numbers that supported my claim with Rudolph versus Hodges. No, here's a crazy one. I just want to throw this out there because I thought this was very interesting. Okay, I was kind of asked to break down, and everyone's saying, "Oh, well, Hodges threw the ball down the field so much more than Rudolph did in the last game." Actually, that's not true. I broke it down into the length of the plays. I broke it down to the length the ball was in the air. When I did the ones that the ball was in the air for more than 10 yards, well, not in when the receiver was 10 yards or more past the line of scrimmage, Hodges had 3 completions out of 5 attempts. This was including penalties, 2 of which would have been interceptions. One was turned over on a penalty, and the other was an offensive pass interference to keep it from being an interception. But what's crazy is on those 3 completions, you know what the total yards after catch was on those 3 deeper completions where he threw the ball downfield? 0. None. One was 0, one was +1, one was -1. Bottom line is everyone's like, oh, well, he's throwing guys open deep. Guys are sitting down in the zone and he's hitting stationary guys or guys on comebacks or guys on crossing patterns. It's not like he's doing anything that they say he's throwing guys open. Guys are sitting in a zone, and that's because there's not tape on him yet. And that's what worries me if he goes into this week. So I still think he can get it done, but not as well as if he had the guy that's made 3 starts already.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Steelers do. And speaking of how they're going to handle those situations, let's talk about some injuries, Dave. Update us on the second injury report. This is not the final. This is recorded on Thursday night. So as of today, Thursday, what does the injury report look like for the Steelers?
Injury report is Mason Rudolph was once again limited. That is how it works when you're in the protocol. So that's what we would expect. And the way it's limited is such a big, wide variance. If there's one thing you can't do, I mean, all it could be is he was limited because he had to do tests in between stuff. We don't really know how much he was doing. A new one today was Mike Hilton was limited with a foot. So we got to keep our eye on that one. Steven Nelson, who we knew that he had a groin, was limited yesterday. He was limited again today. So he didn't come back to full, but he didn't take a step back. So tomorrow will be the key there. Other than that, still no Knicks. Still no Mark Barron. Jalen Samuels is ruled out, although there is a report that Washington's ruled out. The Steelers have not confirmed that at all. They keep saying he just didn't practice. And one, Anthony Chickillo, was limited yesterday and came back to a full participant today. So people are complaining about the Steelers special teams, and people want to complain about Chickillo is a terrible backup, but maybe he could help out the special teams.
Believe it or not, on that injury report, the biggest injury, I think, in my opinion, on that list is Steven Nelson.
I agree.
Because Mason Rudolph, we can talk about that and whether we think he's going to play, and we will, briefly. But if Steven Nelson doesn't play, do you really want Artie Burns making his season debut on Sunday Night Football against Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen? No, you do not. And I understand that Artie Burns looked a little bit better in the preseason, and he's been playing well on special teams. But for me, Steven Nelson is going to be the linchpin for that secondary. If they want to have, in my opinion, the best secondary we've seen under Mike Tomlin's tenure is what we're seeing right now. Nelson, Hilton in the slot, Hayden on the other side, Fitzpatrick, Edmonds, and in the back secondary. I can't think of a secondary that's better. Can you guys? In the Mike Tomlin era?
Oh no.
I mean, you had
all
Troy and
around.
Ryan Clark still, but at the same
Yeah.
time, were the cornerbacks as good as Nelson and Hayden?
Ike,
All I have to say is, we had no idea that this defense was going to be this at the end of last season. You had Steven Nelson that people were like, oh, he was the most targeted because he in Kansas City and blah, blah, blah. No, he's coming out and he's playing lights out. And then you had the Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, my goodness, this isn't even the same team as last year.
No.
It's crazy.
You know what? I'm going to go back to your question, Jeff. Ike and Deshae, Troy and Ryan Clark. I'll probably take that defensive backfield, but I really think this one is ranking up very close.
Yeah, I mean, I know that even against that legendary group that you just mentioned, the weakness was still considered the secondary for the Steelers. It was the cornerbacks. They would always say just pick on the cornerbacks. And so Ike was great. I loved Ike Taylor. But at the same time, I think that if this group can still develop, that's another thing. You know, Fitzpatrick is only in his second year. Edmonds, second year. Nelson has just got off his rookie contract. This is his second contract. Hayden's a veteran. We get that. So it's going to be interesting to see. I agree with you guys. I'd probably give the nod to Deshae and Ike, and then obviously Ryan and Troy in the back end. But this group is good, and we haven't seen this in a long time. The fact that we're talking those aforementioned 4 players, we're in a good spot. So I think that Steven Nelson is a very, very, very important injury this team is facing. But let's talk about Mason Rudolph for a second, guys. He was limited the first 2 days, and as Dave mentioned, that's part of the protocol. If he's a full participant on Friday, which could happen, I think he starts. Dave, do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I think he does, just because, I mean, I know the fans would really want to see what Duck can do and everything, and I know part of me really does as well. But this is the guy that you agreed was going to be your backup whenever they made cut downs in September. And the guy that's the other option was a guy that they let go and nobody else cared to even bother pick up, that they could then grab later, and then had him on the practice squad for a while until they had to bring him up. So, well, wasting a while, I think it was a week. So although I still think Duck is a good quarterback, I think, and some people are saying, oh, it's so close to the bye, why don't you just rest him? Why? If he's ready to go, the way they do head injuries in the NFL, you are not playing. You are either fine to play or you're not. They don't let guys slip through the cracks like they used to. I mean, occasionally that might happen, but that's tough to do anymore. So he's either fine and there's no reason to not play him other than if he didn't get any prep, which he has gotten prep this week, or he's not fine.
Brian, what do you think?
Let me do that not so fast, my friend. And the reason I'm going to say that, let's go back in the Wayback Machine to 2009. December of that year, Pittsburgh was on in a really bad epic slide. I believe it was 5 games in November and December. That was the Unleash Hell era with the Oakland Raiders as well. But here's the deal. Ben Roethlisberger had a concussion. Around Friday or Saturday, he said, I am fine. Mike Tomlin stepped in and said, look, we've had Dennis Dixon working with the first team all week long. We're going with him because we're going with that game plan. So that's what we're doing. And that's exactly what he did. So I'm wondering if they go ahead and do that same thing once again. They ended up losing that game. I believe it was a very close 20-17 ball game. Dixon played admirably. They did not win. It was a Sunday night football game, and they ended up missing the playoffs by 1 game, I believe. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking that they should go with Mason Rudolph to go ahead, and because he has been practicing, so that might be a little more of an advantage. But they might think otherwise because of the preparation so far with a healthy Devlin Hodges.
Yeah, it's so weird because Mason Rudolph has been practicing and it's been limited. And as I said in the live chat, limited is a very vague term. The one thing I hope everyone trusts, and this is it's a hot button word in today's society, trust, is that the Steelers medical staff, the Steelers organization, the NFL, and especially the NFL Players Association is not going to want Mason Rudolph on the field if he's not 100% healthy, period. So in that regard, I think that if he is, let's say he practices fully Friday, to me, that means that he's ready to go. And he's been cleared essentially, and he's ready to go. Now, I would expect him to be labeled as questionable when the injury report is moved out tomorrow. Dave, you're an expert on this type of stuff. Is that your guess too? That he's listed as questionable?
He's either he'll either be questionable because he could still be cleared on Saturday, or he's going to be cleared and not even have an injury status. If he's cleared, he doesn't even have to have an injury status.
If they still had probable, do you think he would be given the probable tag?
No, because he's either cleared Friday and fine, or he's questionable because he needs to clear Saturday. But the thing that people are saying, well, Duck's got the work all week. From what it seems like, at least yesterday, I couldn't find out for sure today, is that they're basically splitting it. So you're talking about, go ahead and go with Hodges because he's been getting the work. No, Rudolph's been getting the work too. So I don't know if it's just a backup work or whatnot, but even Hodges said it was good to see Mason out there and getting reps with the first team and blah, blah, blah. So it's hard to say. I don't know exactly how they're splitting it up. And you could say, well, Hodges has got all the reps all week, so we need to go with him. I don't know if he is or not.
Don't also think about the strategic aspect of this. The Steelers don't have to say anything about Mason Rudolph. He doesn't have to talk to media. They can't talk to him. They don't have to say exactly what is going on at practice because, well, he's in the protocol. I think there might be a little competitive, not that they're using a concussion to try to get a competitive edge, but they're not going to give out any more information than they have to. This reminds me of an NHL injury. You hear guys get lower body injuries, or just my favorite, which Evgeny Malkin is suffering from right now, and undisclosed injury. And I use air quotes there for listening for people on the podcast platform. So it's going to be really interesting. Dave will have that article out on Friday at behindthesteelcurtain.com in regards to the injury report. I personally think that both of these quarterbacks are capable of winning this game. Dave, would you agree with that?
Where are we getting into our what is the our picks for the week?
No, not predictions yet. Not predictions.
Because honestly, I kind of was agreeing with Lance. I think whether or not who starts might depend on whether or not they win this game.
All right, that's a good tease. Let's keep that in your back pocket. Let's go to our X factor or game changer, whatever you want to call it, for the week. You're thinking about this upcoming matchup. You're thinking about the Chargers and the Steelers, Sunday Night Football. You're thinking about one player that you think could turn the tide one way or the other. And we've done this all year. So, Brian, we'll start with you. Who is your X factor for this week?
Well, you said him earlier, and it's TJ Watt. He's going to make something happen. He's going to be destructive on defense. You're right, Jeff. They do need to score points on defense. So that's where I'm going. TJ Watt, number 90.
All right. I like that. And he's quickly becoming, I saw someone in the live chat, Dave, you might know this, Brian, you might know this, that so far in the same amount of games that he's played in Pittsburgh, he has the most sacks in franchise history in that amount of time. Someone in the live chat put that up there. I'm not sure. That's a Brian Anthony Davis stat.
You know what's really funny? He has 20 sacks in his career, and that's not counting anything this year. So 80 is the total. If he goes 6 seasons with 10 sacks plus, he's breaking the record right there.
What does he have so far this year? 3.5? Or does he have more than that? I'll look it up.
I know everyone that got one this past Sunday. Each person had one. This are the ones that got them. So I will look it up.
Dave, go ahead and give us your X factor.
I think this is the easiest one by far that we've had all season for an X factor, and it is one James Conner. It is going up against a defense that just got completely gashed by the run last week. It is a running back who now does not have the main guy that was behind him as the change of pace that looks like he could even get more of a workload, because I'm not sure that they're going to give many more carries to one Benny Snell Jr. They could, but I don't know that they will. Not only that, the Steelers outrushed the Ravens in yards per carry last week. Let that sink in. The Ravens rushed the ball 40 times, and they averaged 3.45 yards a game, when the Steelers only rushed the ball 19 times and averaged over 4 yards a carry. So this is crazy that they're just not running it more. They're going to realize that they need to run it more regardless of which quarterback is in there. This is a defense they can run it against. He's the X factor.
I'm getting ready to say something that I can't believe I'm getting ready to say. In my X factor.
Can't wait.
Okay. I'm probably going to be ridiculed for this, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I think the X factor this week is Dante Moncrief because he's going to get a helmet. He's going to get a helmet. James Washington is out. He's not going to play, and he's going to get a helmet, and I think he's going to see the field. And I just think that if the Steelers are smart, if you're going to put him on the field, you have to try to get him involved early. You have to try to get him a few catches early to get him at least with a little bit of confidence, because right now his confidence has to be in the negatives. And so we talked about this last night, that and on my show with Lance, the standard is a standard. And Lance talked about it. He needs to be the guy that can take the top off of defense. Johnny Holton's tried. I don't think Johnny Holton has any defensive coordinators up at night thinking about that deep shot. And I'm not saying that Dante Moncrief is, but Dante Moncrief at least has a pedigree, taking one of Lance's, P's, the pedigree there. And he also has the pay. And so I think he just needs to be given a chance. I understand that Moncrief has been ridiculed, and rightfully so. He's going to get a shot. And if he fails, he might as well just pack his bags, and by week 10, he's going to be gone. But in the meantime, I think that this is his chance to really show up. And maybe he shows out. We'll see. But you guys might laugh, but that's what I said. X Factor is Dante Moncrief on offense. Brian, you got something to say? Go ahead.
No, I can't touch
about that, because I think that's true. But I also have another question that you have to really think about. Are the Steelers going to promote Trey Edmonds from the practice squad? Are the Steelers going to have to promote Paxton Lynch from the practice squad if Rudolph is deemed out? If so, which player or two are you releasing for the week? I know a lot of people want to say, a receiver. But if Washington's out, can you afford to do that? So that's my question to you guys. Who on this roster could you see them releasing this week? One or two people, depending on what they have to do, if they don't move someone to the IR and if they have to promote somebody.
Personally, I would suggest that could be someone like Zach Gentry if Vance McDonald's healthy, which we don't know. Vance McDonald hasn't practiced.
I forgot to mention him. He's missed both practices this week.
Hasn't practiced at all this week. I don't see them moving Switzer. Honestly, if Moncrief is going to be brought up, you could probably cut Johnny Holton.
Well, the thing is, Johnny Holton plays a ton of special team snaps, not just as a returner. And he's been doing very well.
Right. So I don't know what Brian, who do you think? Oh, I know. Dan McCullers. Just cut Dan McCullers. No one's going to sign him.
Do you really want to cut Bugs?
Everybody will be happy. Bugs is a guy that could possibly go. I would not be shocked to see Fred Johnson or even now people will get crazy with this. Chooks, one of those guys. They might take an offensive lineman and put them aside as well.
They will never get them back. They will not clear waivers. There are too many teams out there with terrible offensive lines that could take anybody, and that either one of those guys could probably start on almost half the NFL teams in this league.
So who do you think, Dave?
I don't know. That's the problem. I think maybe you try to get by with 2 running backs this week. I thought, well, maybe if Nix is back, he could be your emergency running back, but that's not going to do. Hey, they could always go back to doing their fancy put Ryan Switzer in the backfield if they really need a third running back when they tried to do that some last year.
Cut Dan McCullers. Just cut him.
I mean, they're better off. I'll be honest with you. They're better off cutting a veteran like Moncrief that they could say, we just got to pull someone up, but we want to bring you back. Now, cutting them and bringing them back, don't ask me what that does to the comp pick because it's still crazy enough that if you cut someone, you lose the pick. I'd still have to dig into that even more.
Minka, just cut Minka.
Cut McCullers or cut Chicolo. Because honestly, Ola Denier has shown more as a pass rusher, and he's flashed on special teams as well. And then even Elliott, who's been spelling Bud Dupree, has been looking okay as well.
Elliott could be the guy that gets chopped. But the thing is with him is he's a vested veteran. He is not, I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't have to go across waivers, that they could just re-sign him. But I'm not 100% sure of that.
They have some options. Although I will say, if they were to get rid of McCullers, that would be huge for the website because it would be a move that's been anticipated for like the last 5 years, and it just never happens. And maybe it will. Okay, so good question though, Dave. It's something that a lot of people like myself are interested in because I do think they are going to promote Trey Edmonds to the 53-man roster, and I hope they don't have to promote Paxton Lynch, meaning that Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges will be able to head into this game as your 1 and 2 for this week. Let's switch gears a little bit before we get to our predictions for the game. Let's talk a little fantasy football. I feel like I should just not be allowed to talk right now about this because I've been absolutely dreadful in our league. The last 3 weeks has been awful. I started out the year great, and I just cannot for the life of me pick a winning lineup. Now, on other leagues, meaning just the random leagues I do on FanDuel, which we talk about daily fantasy football here, I've had much more success than in our league. In our league, which is the highest paying league, I'm awful. So, guys, you go ahead and talk. I'm going to sit back and listen. Maybe I can soak in some of your knowledge, and maybe I'll use it this week. I'm just joking. I'll give you some tidbits. But, Brian, who's someone you're starting this week? Can be from either team.
Maybe we should let Dave start first because he is in first place in our league.
Yeah, I am in first place, but here's what's funny.
No, you're not. I am.
Wait. Yeah. Total? Are you sure? Did you catch up?
Oh, yeah. I had 180 points this week.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you won big. Because I just didn't check the points. I just check and see how I do each week. But I did check before and saw that I was in first. I don't know. I'm going to tell you this. Brian's got to watch out this week. And I don't know this. I shouldn't talk in this thing either. I can only do well when the Steelers are not part of our league. We only do the 1 and 4 o'clock games on Sunday. Anytime the Steelers are playing one of those games, I've been terrible. But when I'm picking games where I don't have the Steelers as an option at all, I've been in either first or second every week. So, yeah. Brian, you should go first since you have now taken over the top spot.
Okay, I'm going to go with a Los Angeles Charger, and it's going to be Austin Eckler. If that is how you pronounce his name, I believe it is. If it's not, you roast me. That's fine. I just think this guy is still running wild. He's getting a lot of options as far as getting a chance to catch the ball. He picks up a lot of yards. I don't care if Melvin Gordon is back. I just feel like this is probably a solid pick. The Steelers have not stopped the run as well as, they started to stop it a little bit better in the second half of last week's game, but they're still 21st against the run. So I would go ahead and look at someone like Eckler in a fantasy league that don't sit this guy. Make sure you're starting him.
All right, Dave, who are you starting?
Oh, man. I don't really want to start any of the Chargers because I think the Steelers defense can come out and really shut them down. There's so many question marks for the Steelers with the quarterback. So I think the best option is going to be James Conner because it's the most secure option because you don't know who's throwing the ball or anything else. And and the Chargers. Did I say San Diego? I probably did. The Chargers have a not a very good rush defense.
All right, I'm going to think outside the box here. Try to give people something different. Eckler's
Don't say Dante Moncrief.
no. Eckler's a great pick though, Brian. He's a dual threat guy. He's like a Christian McCaffrey. He can get you points in a lot of different ways. I'm going to say start the Pittsburgh Steelers defense because I saw last week in the league that was not our league, the Philadelphia Eagles got me 35 points because they were like a machine. I mean, every time you looked up, there was a sack and turnover. They were scoring. I just think that I don't like the Chargers' offensive line. I don't think it's very good. I think the Steelers could definitely get some pressure. And Phillip Rivers is as close to a statue as you have in the NFL anymore. Although he gets the ball out of his hand quickly, he's also known to take some risks. The Steelers have proven they're taking the ball away. I think that's a good – you could probably get the Steelers' defense at a decent rate, and I think it might pay off for you. I would say think about starting that defense. So there you have that. Now, who are you going to sit, Brian? If there's someone you're like, hey, stay away from this guy, who's that?
I feel like I'm a broken record. I'm still sitting James Conner. I'm not playing him anymore. He's just not getting the yards. I know we got some action out of him in the Cincinnati game, but this offensive line is not giving him any room, and he's just not seizing it as well. So I'm not believing in James Conner right now.
Dave?
I'm going to sit. I don't know. There's too many injury question marks on both of these teams. You do realize that the Chargers are in just as bad a shape as the Steelers with the number of players they've lost. I mean, I freaked out Jeff because he couldn't read the whole text on his watch. He said when I told him that Pouncey was on the IR, but I meant Mike Pouncey.
I was like, what the frick are you doing to me, man?
That Marquise Pouncey's twin brother for the Chargers went on IR this week. They're in trouble too. I mean, I'm going to sit. You know what? I'm going to sit Vance McDonald because even if he does play, I mean, if he plays, he could do great. But there's just too many question marks if he's going to play or not. And if that game is Sunday night, you can't wait until then unless Vanette's out there to pick up. If you're looking at something that's doing the entire weekend, you can't wait and see if he's going to play or not.
Yeah, McDonald is going to be one that, if McDonald does play, let's say he's a full participant tomorrow or even limited or he's labeled as questionable. If McDonald plays, sit Vanette. Because I have been someone that's played Vanette because he's a cheaper option, and I felt like Rudolph or now Duck Dynasty would be able to find him. But McDonald's the primary tight end when he's healthy. So if McDonald plays, don't start Vanette. But if McDonald doesn't play, then you might want to think about starting Vanette. He might get some looks. So there you go. A little bit of back and forth there. So there's your fantasy fix for the week. Hopefully you all can take some of that knowledge. Don't listen to me. Listen to those two guys. They're better than I am so far this year. But hey, that can all change in 1 week. We'll see how things play out this week. Let's get to our predictions now. Steelers are 1-4. I think everyone would agree that this game is the season's on the line right now. If they lose this game and fall to 1-5 heading into the bye week, even if the Dolphins are coming up, even if the Jets are still on the schedule, it would be a tough road to hoe, period. They win this game, you get some momentum going. I gave my prediction last night, so I'll go last. Dave, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this week's game and what's your prediction? What's the spread, by the way? Let us know what the spread and over-under is.
Oh, yeah. I should have already checked that. I know that's part of my deal. It's funny because it actually went – it's
fluctuating between 6.5 and 7.
Yeah, the last I saw, because it was 6.5 when I did my article early in the week, and then it went to 7. And I'm just trying to scroll to the bottom of the page here. It is currently back to 6.5. When the over-under is 41.5. So, but that just keeps constantly changing back and forth. I want to know, how do you think it'll change depending on the quarterback?
I don't think it'll change that much at all, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm believe it or not, which I don't do this very often. I'm going to kind of agree with one Lance Williams is that I think it depends on which quarterback starts, depending on how the Steelers are going to do. Because it's not that I don't trust Duck, I don't trust the Steelers' offensive coaches to handle him any different than what they did with Rudolph right out of the bat with his first start on the West Coast. So I'm just afraid. I think they would give more freedom to Rudolph, or maybe they baby him just as much because he's coming off the injury. Either way, that could be trouble. So I'm going to say that if Rudolph is the starter, it's going to be a 27-20 win for the Steelers, and if it's Duck, it's going to be a 20-17 loss.
Yeesh. All right, Brian, what are your thoughts?
Chargers 34, Steelers 20.
34-20?
Yeah, I'm not feeling it. I'm just every time I get up for this team, then they go ahead and something weird happens. I'm waiting for aliens to land on the field and like take Juju Smith-Schuster away this week. Something weird happens every single week just when I get excited. So really at this point, I feel like I've lost my mojo and I need something to bring me back. But I know what happens with me every time I pick them to lose big. They do something crazy and win. So maybe I'm hoping. Maybe I'm just going to play that, but I got to put it on paper. 34-20.
All right, I said that I thought the Steelers were going to win regardless of who's the quarterback. I think the Steelers defense scores some points. I want to say that my prediction, and I wish I would have written it down. I didn't. I think I had the Steelers winning like 24-20, maybe. If not, we'll go with that from here on out, 24-20. I think the Steelers make enough plays. It's not going to be the prettiest of games, but I'm just not impressed with the Chargers either, and I think the Steelers defense is starting to come into their own. So there you have it. Dave went halvesies. Brian picked the Chargers. I picked the Steelers. So here we are, three guys, and we've still it's a tie. And so Lance Williams breaks the tie because he picked the Chargers yesterday as well. So we have a few minutes.
I thought
here.
he did what I did. I thought he did one if it was Mason or.
No, well, he did, but those are different scores.
Oh, different scores. You picked him to lose them both. Okay.
Of course he did. We do have $5 in the tip jar from Dryfly. He says, do you think Mason Rudolph will be scared to throw the ball after his first concussion and throw the ball away when he gets rushed? And this is a tough question to answer because every player is different. But Brian, what are your thoughts?
You know what? I don't get that inclination from a guy like Mason Rudolph, but who knows how snake bitten he actually is from this game. But I would probably say, I would err on the side of I don't think he would.
Okay, Dave, what are your thoughts?
I don't think he would either, just because of how much it would completely inhibit his career going forward. You got to shake it off. I'll be honest with you. Everything that you're hearing out of Rudolph and the team and everything else is that this hasn't affected him nearly. We are the ones that are thinking this was such a bad situation. He's like, no, I got knocked out. It wasn't so bad. You guys ever been knocked out before?
Negative.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I mean, so I don't know, Brian.
Brian's story is probably funny. I imagine.
Are there good ways to be knocked out? I mean, can you be knocked out? I mean, we used to play the pass out game where we would make each other pass out, and then you would wake up. And I don't even want to start talking about that.
No, I don't want to. No, I definitely don't want to find out what's going on there. That has you waking up with organs gone. So I don't want to hear that. But
we used to play it all the time.
I had a concussion back in 2003. I fell on the ice twice in 20 seconds. The second one knocked me out. And it was funny because I was working at an Enterprise rent-a-car at the time, and I was the only one there. And you know the slogan at Enterprise, "We'll pick you up." I had to go pick somebody up with a concussion. And luckily, it was a nurse. And I said, "Ma'am, I'm not supposed to do this because I don't have your license and information, but will you please drive me back?"
There you go.
Like, you need to go to the hospital.
Yeah. Well, I've been concussed twice in my life, and it didn't really. It's funny. The one was in high school, actually not playing football, playing basketball, taking a charge and hitting my head off the court. Um, that one, I don't even remember the rest of the game. But that one, I bounced back like really fast. I was fine right after. It wasn't, I that was before they knew a lot about concussions, everything. I really came back quick. But in college, playing intramural flag football, I just hit my head on the ground one time. We actually ran a center sneak where I was the center because everyone was eligible, and I ended up falling back and hitting my head on the ground. And that one bothered me a long time, and it wasn't nearly as vicious as a hit as the first one. So sometimes it doesn't always come down to how bad the hit looks as to what it really affects you. And if he's fine, then he's fine. And I don't think he really remembers getting hit. So I don't know if he's going to really be scared about it.
The only thing I'd be surprised if he changes is I wouldn't be shocked, and I've seen pictures of him at practice this week, and I forget to look, is I wouldn't be shocked if he would go to one of those padded chin straps. And if you watch that hit, he does not have a padded chin strap. And although it's not going to, if someone's driving their helmet into your chin, it's not going to have that big of a deal. But a lot of players do that, to give them a little bit more protection there. So it'll be interesting to see. Yes.
We had a $5 in the tip jar from Snowman way long time ago that I'm sure we can't even bring up because it was towards the beginning. But his question was, do we know anything about how quarterbacks have played coming off of concussions? Are they usually better? Are they usually not? Like, I'm trying to think of like Ben, when Ben's come back from a concussion, how he's played the next game. I don't know that off the top of my head. Do either of you guys?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it's been like what Brian suggested earlier, and that's where, Roethlisberger didn't practice all week, and then he tries to come back. It's, even last week, Josh Allen in Buffalo, he didn't practice all week and then was deemed cleared and played on Sunday, and they won. But this is such a strange situation for me to see Rudolph at practice all week and leading up to the game. It almost seems like, although he's going through a battery of tests every day, I'm sure, that it seems like he's completely fine. Brian, what do you think?
I don't know stats, but if you go back in time, it seems like anytime, it doesn't have to be a concussion either. Anytime Ben came back, the first week was typically dreadful. He always needed to, get those 4 quarters in before he played well, and they were usually a loss. That's something that Dave, maybe you get the Scat Geek gang together and try to figure that one out. But I don't know. It's kind of a crazy thing because Mason Rudolph, I actually the way he plays, I actually have a better feeling about him coming back in his first game back than what I remember of Ben coming back.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting this season in general, and I say this as an editor that has to worry about traffic numbers and analytics and things like that. Has been so strange in so many ways. There's been so much news, from the trades to the injuries to the intrigue, and it's great for the site. It's great for our podcast. It keeps people listening and reading. But my gosh, they need to win.
Yeah.
And they need to win big time. And so, they could definitely get rid of some of those West Coast demons this weekend. Prime time, they typically do play well in prime time. I'm trying to think of the last prime time game where the Steelers kind of fell flat on their face. I don't see that happening anytime.
That was week 1
against Los Angeles.
No, I'm saying week 1 of this season.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Good point, Dave. I've blocked that out of my mind.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see what's going to happen. So, all right. Any final thoughts, guys, before we call it a show?
Hope I'm wrong, and I'm still excited for this game.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, same here. I don't want people to think that I'm down on Duck. I'm more down on how the Steelers handle a quarterback in their first start. That's what bothers me more than anything. So, but you know what? Maybe this would be a chance for the Steelers show they'd get over themselves with the way that they would bring someone along with that, because Rudolph was possibly the future. I don't know that they have ever planned on Duck being in the equation ever. So you might as well just let him sling it. Although he did have he did have 2 gift plays that should have been interceptions that ended up not being. So that's something you got to remember. So with the good also comes the bad, and he did pretty good last week. But remember, that bad's going to come out at some point.
Absolutely. And so now you have the Steelers in desperate need of a victory. The fans need a victory. Obviously, they just need to win a game. So here's what's coming up tomorrow night, Friday night. Lance will be on. Everyone loves to hate Lance Williams. And Lance's show's title, Yeah, I Said It. You are what your record says you are, or something like that. He told me that today. So this is a little teaser. And then Saturday, Dave will have your Steelers burning question for the week. I'm not sure when he's going to do that show. And then Sunday night, I'll be on for the post game late after the Sunday nighter, and we'll be talking about it leading into the bye week. So make sure you check out all those shows as well as BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Great show as always. We'll still be back next week to talk about the bye week. Yes, we'll be back to talk about the bye week. We'll see you then.